In this episode,
Alchemists are the people who shift from being a victim of life and a victim of their external circumstances into conscious creators of their lives. Alchemists are the ones who can create the exact life that they want for themselves. Here, you will learn how to turn your pain into power, your obstacles into opportunities, and your dreams into reality. Hello, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Aulona Alchemy podcast. Today, we are going to be covering my absolute favorite topic in the world, alchemy. Alchemists are masters of manifesting. Alchemists are the people who shift from being a victim of life and a victim of their external circumstances into conscious creators of their lives. Alchemists are the ones who can create the exact life that they want for themselves. Alchemists are the ones who can say, I am happy, I am healthy, I am abundant, I am rich, I am adventurous, I am thriving, and I am doing all these things because I took my life into my own hands and I created this life that I wanted for myself. That is what an alchemist does. That's why I'm so excited to get into today's episode. Guys, if you only watch one podcast episode of all the episodes I ever make, then let it be this one. Because this episode is going to completely change your life. It is going to teach you the foundation of it all. It is going to teach you how to become a master manifester. This is it. This is the big one. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. So, what even is alchemy? I actually get this question very, very often. And if you might have seen online, it's also kind of become a buzzword. Alchemy was actually a pseudoscience in the medieval times. It was the science of those times. But later, that actually evolved into chemistry and the physics we know today. So, alchemy was deemed a pseudoscience because their objectives are just not possible with today's modern science. What was science in medieval times called alchemy later evolved into chemistry, physics, and what we consider modern science today. So, the objectives of alchemy at the time were three main objectives. They were the transmutation of base metals into gold, like turning lead into gold. That was one of the objectives. Another objective was to find the cure to all diseases. And the other objective, the third one, was to find the elixir of life or the elixir of immortality, finding a way so that humans could live forever and never ever die. Those were the three objectives. And today in 2025, those have not been achieved yet with science. There's currently no way that humans can live forever, no elixir of life for immortality. There is no cure for all diseases just yet. And there's no way to turn all metals into gold, like take lead and just find a way to process it and turn it into gold. Right? So it was disregarded as a pseudoscience. So why is alchemy important today? Well, the secret here is that these principles are meant to be looked at in a metaphorical perspective. So if you take the idea of turning lead into gold, lead personifies all the impurities in our soul and in our life. And gold personifies perfection. Gold is a material which cannot be corrupted. And so, metaphorically speaking, the alchemy is a spiritual process by which you take all the corruptible parts of your personality and of your soul and of your spirit, and you transmute them into a perfect, uncorruptible material like gold or the perfect essence of your soul. So, spiritual alchemy is the transmutation of your life. It is actually the transmutation of pain into power. It's the transmutation of obstacles into opportunities. And it is the manifestation of turning your dreams into realities. These are the three core principles that we learn about on the Aulona Alchemy podcast. That's why alchemy is my absolute favorite subject. Here, you will learn how to turn your pain into power, your obstacles into opportunities, and your dreams into reality. So, without further ado, let's get into the alchemy. I'm going to explain to you the seven alchemical processes, and I'm going to explain to you what their scientific physical definition is, and then how we can interpret it metaphorically um, for you in your life. And by the end of this episode, not only are you going to have a completely different outtake on life, a completely different viewpoint on life, but you are also going to be able to identify exactly which stage of alchemy you are currently in your life right now so that you can know how to move forward with your spiritual ascension and evolution. And in becoming an alchemist, in mastering this natural process, which is always going on around us. Alchemy is always going on around us, just like the water cycle, which you learned about in maybe second grade science of uh, evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. We had a song for it. Evaporation, condensation, precipitation on the ground. And it's called the water cycle, and it's going round and round. So that is something that you learned was always going on around you. Well, similarly, alchemy is always going on around you. So if you can learn this process, then you can learn how to harness it and use it in your favor. That's how you go from being a victim of life to a conscious creator. So, someone who wasn't aware of the water cycle, perhaps every time it would rain, they would just be so upset and devastated, like it is raining, what is going on? But once humans learned about the water cycle, they could learn how to actually harvest this process and use it to serve them in their favor. They learned how to actually collect the rain and they learned how to farm, and then they created these beautiful gardens, right? So similarly, once you learn the alchemical process, you will become an alchemist and you will be able to consciously create the life of your dreams. Let's get into it. The seven stages of alchemy are calcination, dissolution, separation, conjunction, fermentation, distillation, and coagulation. Now, again, do not be intimidated. I'm sure you're thinking, what in the what in the universe did she just say? Okay, don't worry if you don't remember these terms from science class or if you never even learned them. It is totally fine because it is not important that you know them for our discussion. I'm going to explain to you what they meant physically and then what it means metaphorically so you can apply it in your life. Let's start with stage one. How does the alchemy begin? How does this cycle that's always going on around us kind of, how can we know where we are? We'll begin with stage one. Think of an extremely difficult event that shook you to your core. I'm talking about something that rocked your whole foundation. Like perhaps you got into an accident, or you might have lost your job, or perhaps you went through a breakup or a divorce. Something that really, really rocked you to your core. Perhaps it was as simple as someone offended you, but that thing that they said like upset you. It really, really got to you and made you angry. So begins the alchemical process. And this first stage, this angry, hurt, confused, disruptive, chaotic stage is called calcination. Now, physically, calcination is when you take a material and you burn it. That is what was going on in the physical process of alchemy and calcination, even today in science, when you take a material and you burn it. So, in your life, metaphorically, in this phase, you feel like you are on fire. You feel like everything around you is going up in flames. That's why they say that, right? And it is an extremely difficult, turbulent, chaotic time in your life. So, what you want to do in this stage is just let the fire naturally die down. And remember that this external situation, this external event or occurrence is actually happening for you, not to you. And this is extremely hard. Like you just got fired from your job, or your partner just broke up with you in a horrible way, or your best friend just completely did something horrible to you and betrayed you. How could this be happening for you? Well, trust the process because I'm going to explain to you how and why this is happening for you. So it will inevitably happen. Things externally happen all the time to catalyze the process. Now, to be an alchemist, you need to know to let the fire die down, and you need to be still, and you need to not take any decisions during this turbulent phase. This is not the time to make any decisions because you are angry and up in flames. This is not, something will happen like, your boss pisses you off or does something horrible and you're so angry and you'll be like, oh, I'm going to go show him. No, you are in calcination. Like this is not the time to make any decisions. So you need to be still and sit through it. You need to walk through the fire. Okay. And the fire is actually not what is dangerous. What is dangerous in life is not knowing how to control the fire. Okay. Part of being an alchemist is knowing how to control the fire. And a true alchemist will actually put themselves in the fire. The fire is an extremely uncomfortable situation. So when you become a true alchemist, you will actually purposefully put yourself in extremely uncomfortable situations because you will understand the alchemy that goes on. You will understand the spiritual evolution that goes on, and you will understand that there is no way to grow in life without getting uncomfortable. So that's why the fire is so important. With fire that is completely out of control, you become enraged and it becomes dangerous. Like, unfortunately, what just happened in LA, fire can be extremely dangerous. But without any fire at all, you remain stagnant and you don't grow in life. So to be an alchemist, you need to know how to control the fire. Whether you are putting yourself in the fire or whether it is happening to you, learn how to be still in it, learn how to control it, and learn how to wait for those emotions to settle down so that you can move on to the next stage, which is dissolution. Now, the physical, scientific process of dissolution is when you take that material which you just burned in calcination, you take those ashes and you put them in a liquid like water. So water represents emotions. In this phase of alchemy, we start to feel extremely emotional. We start to cry and our feelings really start bubbling up to the surface. So in this stage, you will cry, you will be emotional, you will be going through a lot. And this is where that old adage comes in. You need to feel it to heal it. So this is another important part of the process. Dissolution. You need to process your feelings. You need to let yourself cry, let yourself reflect on what happened and why you're so upset about it. Till now, I'm sure you have experienced both of these stages and you can recall a time very simply, a time where you were completely distraught, something horrible happened to you, you were extremely angry, and then you moved on to the crying stage, to the emotional stage, right? To the dissolution stage, stage 2. So I'm sure you can think of times in your life where this has happened. But in order to be an alchemist and get through the dissolution stage, you need to find a healthy way to process your emotions. You need to picture a river that's like flowing and you need to let it flow. What people often do that makes them stuck in the stage and not able to progress and move forward is that rather than feeling their feelings and processing them in a healthy way, they will try to numb them with, I don't know, with substances or with work, or just try to shove it down and not acknowledge it. So if you don't take the time to let your emotions flow like a river, if you don't take time to feel it, to heal it, then those emotions will live inside you, inside your cells, inside your body, inside your subconscious, and they will manifest in ways that you don't want, right? So this is key. And it's also extremely uncomfortable. Like, it's not comfortable to sit there and process your emotions, but you got to do it. What you don't want to do in this stage is get stuck in a victim mentality. Like, remember, alchemists are the creators of life. They are not the victims of life. So you want to process your emotions, you want to feel them, you want to try to understand what about the situation is making you so upset, but you don't want to get stuck in victim mentality of why did this happen to me? Remember, alchemy is always happening for us, okay? Not to us. So the right thing to do to pass stage 2 dissolution and to get through it is to find a healthy way to release your emotions. So that could be writing in a journal. That could be speaking to someone that you love or that you trust, that you can trust to let out your emotions. That could be speaking to a therapist. That could be even working out. Whatever it is that works for you, find a healthy way to process and feel your emotions so that you can move on to the next stage. I keep saying move on to the next stage because it is extremely important to move on to the next stage of alchemy. The idea is you need to complete all 7 stages to reach your spiritual evolution. So if you don't progress to the next stage, you get stuck and then you actually digress. So in this case, if you went through calcination and dissolution, you went through the anger and you went through the emotions, but you didn't find a healthy way to process your emotions, then you will be stuck in a loop of only stage 1 and 2. And your consciousness will only ever evolve to stages 1 and 2. So it is very important that you keep the process moving forward. This is how you ascend spiritually. Once you have processed your emotions in a healthy way, once you have made sure not to misdirect that river that you are flowing of emotions towards someone who doesn't deserve it. Have you ever been there where you've just been so upset and you've just completely exploded on someone who didn't deserve it? That's what you don't want to do. Be mindful when you are in the stage of complete emotion and distraught and tears. You want to process your feelings in a healthy way, but you don't want to take them out on someone who doesn't deserve it. So be mindful and be careful because water can also be dangerous, right? Once you process your emotions in a healthy way, you naturally move on to stage 3, which is separation. So scientifically, the physical process of separation is when now the ashes that you burn, that ashy material, which you now put into liquid in dissolution, in stage 3 separation, that material will start to separate, okay? So the heavy material inside this mixture will start to sink to the bottom and the lighter material will start to float to the top. For example, think about when you make a tea, when you add the tea leaves, okay? Once they become really heavy, they will sink to the bottom. And the oils and the essence of that tea floats up to the top. So in this mixture, you start to see different materials separate inside it. That's what's going on physically in separation. Now, what does this mean in your life? What does separation mean metaphorically for you? So in this phase, you actually start to separate what is serving you from what is no longer serving you. It is a stage where you start to gain clarity. So picture this mixture of water with ash being poured inside. It's all diluted and turbulent. But by the separation stage, everything has kind of started to settle and the mixture is becoming a bit more clear. So in your life, you are starting to gain clarity about what is truly important to you and what you need to keep and what you need to let go. So you are starting to separate old behaviors and beliefs and even people from your life. So you went through this horrible situation. You got all upset about it and you cried and you felt and you felt and felt. And now you're at the stage where you're starting to reflect, you're starting to see a bit more clearly, and you're starting to separate what you want to keep and what you don't want to keep. You start to think about what is no longer serving me? What should I part ways with? You start to look back at the event that onset your calcination, and you start to understand some underlying connections that were there for you emotionally or spiritually. So you start to make some decisions about what you need to keep and what you need to let go of. This is an extremely difficult and even lonely stage. Let me put it for you practically. Oftentimes, you might find that you need to separate from certain people in your life, certain people who are no longer aligning with who you want to become, certain people who you realized maybe aren't there for you or just are not serving who you want to become. And so you need to cut them out of your life. You also need to cut certain habits out of your life, certain things which led you to be in that calcination phase. You need to get clear and honest with yourself about what situation was I in, or how was I thinking, or how was I acting, which may have contributed to that event in the calcination stage. And this takes deep honesty, deep reflection, and deep strength. It is so hard for people to go truly through the separation stage because they don't know what awaits them on the other side of it. They don't know who they will be without these friends or without these habits or without these beliefs. But you got to be strong enough to do it. Because if you don't, like I said, you will be stuck between stages 1, 2, and 3. You will be stuck doing the same old thing, going through these horrible events, crying about them, being upset about them. And then you might get to the stage where you realize, okay, that thing I was doing or those people I was hanging out with might have contributed to that. But if you choose to just keep doing it anyway, if you choose not to change, if you choose not to separate them from your life, it's just going to keep happening again and again and again. And we've all been there before. We've all been there before. Some things are easier to let go of. Some things are much harder to let go of. And I want to just tell you, if you are in this stage, find the strength to get through it. Find the strength to cut out the things which are no longer serving you. Find the strength to separate what is like the ash and the dirty part of your soul, metaphorically speaking, so that you can make way for the new and the clean in your life. Okay. And if you're cutting ties with certain people, you can do it gracefully. You don't need to blame anyone. You don't need to explode on anyone. You can just do it from an evolved place of this is no longer serving who I want to become. And it doesn't necessarily mean that those people have ill intentions towards you. It might just be who they are. It might be that when you hung out with a certain group of people, you always partook in the same activities together. Like you always gossip or you always have unhealthy habits together, and it's just what you do. So maybe you start to realize that if you continue to hang out with them, you are going to be stuck doing these same old bad habits that you don't want to do anymore. So you need to be strong enough to separate it from your life. Once you successfully do that, it will be lonely a little bit. It will be lonely. But if you can stay strong and firm in clearing out what is no longer serving you, then you will make it to the 4th stage of alchemy and you will move forward in your spiritual evolution. The 4th stage of alchemy is called conjunction. So conjunction in the scientific process is when we take material that has been purified and then we combine all these essences back together. So you might have like a liquid which you separated out all the junk from and all the gunk, and now it's more pure and in its essential form. For example, with the tea, you took out the tea leaves because if you left the tea leaves there for too long, it will start to get bitter. So you separated out the tea leaves and now you have this beautiful essence left with you. This beautiful tea, which has only the clean parts, the parts you want to keep, right? And now you might add a little honey into your tea to make it even better. So in conjunction, you start to take purified materials and you mix them together in a beautiful, cohesive mixture. So what does this mean in your life? What is the stage in your life metaphorically. This is actually a beautiful stage in the process. So after you did the hard work of separation and cutting out what no longer serves you, you are actually operating at a higher vibrational level. So you got rid of the toxic people. You stopped doing those toxic habits. You stopped doing things which were no longer serving your growth and who you want to become. So you got rid of that stuff. So you're starting to feel much better. Your vibe is way higher. You are operating at a newer frequency. And because you are operating at this more beautiful, more clean, more elevated frequency, you start to attract like-minded people and like-minded or similar situations into your life. This is how we always say, to manifest, you need to attract, you need to become it. So when you separate what was holding you back, you now start to attract newer, better, more beautiful things into your life. Simply just by feeling better, simply just by doing better, simply just by operating on this better, higher, more evolved frequency. So you have stabilized at a new frequency. You are now seeing the benefits of your hard work in this alchemical process. You made it through the fire, you walked through the fire, you waited for it to die down, and you know you're an alchemist and you know you're a phoenix that's going to rise from the ashes. And then you took the time to process your emotions and you cried it out, but in a healthy way. You journaled, you spoke to friends, you spoke to a therapist, you maybe even started working out to let your emotions out. And then you cut out what is no longer serving you in life. You cut out the people who are holding you back. You cut out the negative habits that were keeping you in this loop of a life that you don't want to be living and situations you don't want to find yourself in, right? You separated that out. And now you are operating at a better frequency, at a higher frequency. You are feeling better and you are just starting to attract new people, new opportunities, and new better situations in your life. So that's stage 4. But be careful. We're only halfway through the process. You don't want to get stuck here. You're going to be feeling really good, but you're only halfway through. So, what can you do to move forward? So, how do you get to stage 5? Well, as a true alchemist, you need to be always committed to your personal development, personal growth, and evolution. And while you're in this amazing, beautiful phase of feeling good, you need to stay dedicated to your practice of going within and digging further. So, stage 5 is called fermentation. So, fermentation is when you introduce a low and slow heat into that liquid mixture that we've been describing, which then slowly starts to transform it. Think about the process of making wine. Okay. So, what does fermentation mean in your life? What is going on in your life in the stage of alchemy? Well, again, this is a difficult phase again. This is the phase of going deep into your psyche, deep into your subconscious, going into the shadow sides and finding out what deep rooted beliefs of yours and what parts of your ego are holding you back. What parts of your behavior and your belief system are coming from your ego rather than your spirit and your soul. What parts of the way you see the world and what you were taught and how you see things needs to die, needs to go? What part of how you see the world is no longer serving you? In this 5th stage of alchemy, fermentation, there is literally a death of the old self so that a new you can be born. It's intense and it's difficult, and it really takes you looking inwardly with an open mind, and being open to questioning everything you think. Here, we need to face our darkness and our inner demons. So, this is kind of like the separation phase, only in the separation phase, it was much easier to understand what you needed to part ways with. It was much easier for you to understand. For example, they were external bad behaviors or external people that you could kind of more easily see, okay, that is not serving me, so I need to cut that out. These people have bad habits, or these people have bad vibes, or these people are not aligned with where I'm going, so I need to part ways with them. These habits of mine are not serving me, so I need to part ways with these habits. I need to stop uh taking substances, or I need to stop gossiping. I need to stop not sleeping all the time. I need to stop doing these unhealthy things. I need to da da da. So it was much easier for you to understand what you needed to separate in the separation phase. But in the fermentation phase, you need to part ways with deep rooted belief systems. So the way you do this is by doing meditation, by doing breath work, by going to therapy, by reading books. Honestly, by reading books has changed my life. Reading books on different perspectives. Also by watching this podcast, by listening to this podcast, by opening your mind to new ways of thinking, and by being open to turning inwardly. I'm going to give you a good example of this. So, first of all, in the fermentation stage, the things that you want to part ways with are so deeply rooted in your psyche, maybe in your subconscious and in your upbringing, that you might genuinely think that they are good for you. You might think that this is a positive. And in this stage, you will learn that, wait a second, this thing, which I thought was serving me, which I thought was one of my best qualities and virtues, is actually working against me, and is actually something I don't want to believe anymore or think anymore. That's why it's kind of such a difficult phase, because there's this huge shift inside you, this death of the old you. So one example of one thing I parted ways with in the fermentation phase, one deep rooted belief system that I had that I thought was actually amazing. And then I had this ego death, and found that it actually wasn't great, is I used to pride myself on being like an overachiever. I used to pride myself on just working, and achieving one goal and moving to the next, and achieving one goal and moving to the next. And I, even embarrassingly so, whatever, had written like in my LinkedIn bio and certain bios, achieving one goal means commencing the next. And I thought that was something to be proud of. I thought, like, look at me. I just go, go, go. And I achieve one thing and then I do the next thing. And that is obviously an amazing thing. It was something I was proud of, and it was a part of my identity. However, I was reading a book at some point. I can't recall at the moment what book it was. I was reading a book, and it said that people who tie themselves to their achievements do it because they believe that their self-worth is tied to achieving things. Like, what? That really resonated with me. And it resonated with me, and it really touched me when I read it, because it was true. It was true for me. Like, I had to be honest about myself. I had to really take a deep look inside, and I was open to it at that time. I was open to listening. I was reading that book for a reason. And when it said that people who are constantly achieving one thing and the next and the next and the next are doing it because they don't think they're good enough just as they are. They think they always need to be doing something to prove their value and prove their worth. So that was the case for me. So there I had this complete mind-blowing and very uncomfortable realization. The one thing that I was so proud of, that I was, working on and doing and killing it, the one thing that I thought was amazing about me turned out to be something that I needed to part ways with. Now, I didn't have to do that. Of course, I could keep on going and going and going, but it was the realization of, this was coming from a deep rooted belief inside me, inside my subconscious, inside my psyche, that someone's worth is proven by their external achievements. And if I wanted to move on in life and ascend and elevate and spiritually grow, then I needed to change that perspective. And I did. And then here's the good part about this. When you are able to do this, when you are able to have this shift and have this death of the ego, and you're open to it, and you're open to saying like, okay, I can change my mind and I can see why this is no longer serving me. By the way, at some point, these deep-rooted beliefs might have served you at some stage in your life. But now in your evolution, you might realize that they are no longer serving who you are trying to become. So it's time to let them go. So for me, once I was able to stop tying my self-worth to these external achievements, well, I just like took such a huge weight off my chest and my shoulders, because I became comfortable with just being me, just existing. And now I still do so many things. Maybe I still struggle with it, but honestly, I'm someone who loves life, who always just wants to experience as much as possible. But that shift made it so I don't tie my self-worth to my projects, to my job, to failures or successes. There's no such thing as failures for me. There's just lessons. And I can say that truly and deeply because I've gone through this evolution. It's one thing to say these things and to hear them, and there are these quotes you see on Instagram, but it's another thing to feel it deeply. So that was one example of that death of the ego. That was one example that catapulted me into a whole new stage of life, truly within myself, doing the inner work to tell myself, you are good enough just the way you are. Doesn't matter if you know, win this next project, or if you complete this building on time, or if you do this or if you do that, like, you know what I mean? You are allowed to just exist. And that, if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be the Aulona I am today. So this stage, while deeply uncomfortable, while it will rock your whole world, it is imperative to your growth. Now, guys, you are in level 5 here. You are in stage 5. So this is going to take you going deep. Another good example of this is another example of an epiphany or ego death that you can have in this phase is your relationship with money, for example. A lot of people, when they will start doing the money coaching and mindset, which we will have episodes on this as well, they will start to see that they have deep rooted beliefs about money which are not serving them. They will start to see that they were taught to see money as this evil thing. They start to understand that it's programmed into their subconscious that only bad people have money, or only dirty people have money, or all of these negative things in their subconscious linked towards money. So to do this shift, they might say, wait a minute, there are good people who have money, and you can do great things with money, and I can be an amazing person and have a lot of money, and I can make lasting change with it. So that's another one of those shifts that you might have here. I'm giving you examples so that you can kind of look for it within yourself and recognize it and be open to letting parts of your ego die so that you can make space for who you want to become. Don't feel any shame around realizing these things. It's actually a good sign. It means you're doing the alchemy. It means you're doing the work. So guys, in the fermentation stage, it's a slow process, but be open to going inwardly. Read books, do the meditations, do the breath work, do the therapy. This is where therapy comes in. Now you're starting to see why all this stuff is linked to manifestation. See, if you get to this stage and now you have a death of that ego, and you separate from those deep-rooted belief systems that were holding you back, now you can operate at a brand new frequency, at a higher level, so that you can actually start to attract what you want in life. This is why it's all linked to manifestation. So no one wants to go to therapy. No one wants to do the work. No one wants to do, this is called the shadow work. Carl Jung talks about it a lot. You got to do the shadow work. You got to go into the dark places of your psyche and go there and visit them. And you need to be open to questioning your belief systems and changing them. And again, it's incredibly difficult to visit some of these places of your psyche, but you got to do it to get to the next level. So after you have a death of the ego and of the old self, and you're ready to make way for the new you, after you let go of something that was holding you back, you move to the sixth stage of alchemy, which is called distillation. So now, amazing job. You're in stage 6, distillation. Physically, distillation is when you take that liquid, that material that we've been processing this whole time, and you introduce a higher heat to it, so much so that it starts to evaporate. So the material goes from liquid form to gas form. It's just like the water cycle that I said. You heat up the liquid, starts to evaporate, and it becomes a gas. Then you take that gas and you put it in a cold dish up here, and then it condensates back down to water. So it's liquid turning into gas, and then the gas being cooled down back into liquid. It's being distilled. It's going through these many rounds of liquid gas, liquid gas, liquid gas. And in doing so, it's being purified. Now, what does that mean for you? So this is where it starts to get trippy and fun. In this stage, what is going on in your life is that, well, simply put, you just need to meditate. You need to meditate, 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 and I'll tell you why. So I just said the physical process of heating up the liquid, turning it into gas, heating it up, turning it into gas, liquid gas all over again. In this stage, you are meditating. You went through all those phases, and now the only thing you can do to move forward is meditate. So you watching this episode right now, you might not have a meditation practice. Now, to be an alchemist, you absolutely need to meditate. You need to have meditation as a practice, because this is the only way you can spiritually ascend. And I'll explain to you why. Now, I'm speaking to, maybe a lot of my audience do meditate, but I also want to speak to the people that have never tried it before or don't see the value in it, because certain people might not have tried true meditation. You might go to like a yoga class, or you might see someone who says they're doing a meditation, but it's not the deep one. It's not the good one. It's not the one that elevates your soul. So there's a way in which, when you close your eyes and you cut out all external distractions and you go inwardly, okay, either with music or a guided voice that will help you get there, or on your own. I often like to do it with someone guiding me, okay? There's a way that you can take your consciousness and elevate it and have it connect to the collective consciousness. I mean, thank God I already made that episode. So go check out the episode on collective consciousness. It is imperative that you it is imperative that you connect to the brain of the universe, because here you will receive a message. Here you will have some kind of epiphany. So if you don't want to do this, if you're the kind of person that's like, well, meditation is just not for me, then you will only ever make it to stage 5 of spiritual ascension. You will only ever make it to stage 5 of alchemy, and you will always repeat stages 1 through 5 in your life. And that's fine. You are welcome to do that, but you will not become a master manifester. You will not become an alchemist, and it will be much more difficult for you to be the conscious creator of your life. So if you want to be the conscious creator of your life, if you want to manifest the life of your dreams, if you want to do all this, then you gotta give meditation a try. You gotta do this. So what happens in stage 6 distillation is that, just like that imagery of water turning into gas, or liquid turning into gas and then condensing back down to liquid, what happens is, when you're meditating in this stage, and you got to do it over and over and over again, just like the distillation, when you meditate over and over and over again, your consciousness leaves your body. It goes up into space and connects with the collective consciousness, with the mind of the all, with the brain of the universe. Your consciousness leaves your body, connects with the unified consciousness. It receives messages and awakening and epiphanies. And then your consciousness recondenses back down into the physical form in your body. And then you go out into your waking life and you practice the epiphanies and the messages that you receive while you were meditating. So here's an example of I've received millions of messages because I meditate a lot, and you just need to do it to see for yourself. But one of the things I received up there was the calling to spread this message, the calling to do this podcast and help the lives of others, right? So it's not just about what you want to do in life. It will be some kind of epiphany that you will reach, which will further your spiritual ascension, which will take you all the way. And you will know when you've made it out of stage 6, distillation, and into the final stage, stage 7, coagulation. Because in stage 6, while you're doing this meditation, you will have an epiphany. Sometimes it will be really bright and really powerful. You will know. So you will have an epiphany. That's how you know you've made it to stage 7. And that epiphany needs to be reached sober. That's the thing. It cannot be reached through mind-altering substances for the alchemy. You got to do it sober. You got to do it simply through meditation. We are purifying our mind and body and consciousness. So that's what you got to do. After distillation, you reach stage 7, coagulation. Now, this is mastery. This is gold. When we talked about turning lead into gold, this is it. So at stage 7, you are in your purest form. This is like the nirvana. This is when you feel your best. And this is where your greatest, and I mean greatest, biggest manifestations come to fruition. That's when they are made manifest. That's when they are realized, when you reach stage 7, because you are now operating at your highest possible frequency. It is the purification and the alignment of the mind, body, and soul. But wait a minute, you're still not done. Yeah. Alchemy is a cyclical process. So once you reach stage 7, you will again inevitably be knocked right back down to stage 1, calcination. What? I know. It might seem upsetting at first, but here's what happens. You go through this whole cycle of alchemy and you make it through all 7 stages. And now you have ascended spiritually, but you're not done. This is the life's work. Like, you need to do this your whole entire life. And the more times you complete all 7 stages, the more of a master you become, the more of an alchemist you become, the more of a conscious creator of your life you become. And it is the big work, as they say. It is a lifelong work. So when you look at someone like me, your manifesting mentor, your favorite alchemist, and someone who is on a level where I teach this stuff and I've practiced it for over a decade, I too at any time could be in the calcination stage or in the dissolution stage crying my eyes out, or I could be in the fermentation stage having a death of the ego, and it's not fun. So oftentimes people have the misconception of, like, you reach this state of constant nirvana in your life and then you make it, you manifested it, and then you're done. But no, just because your external reality starts to change and you also grow inwardly and you start to level up doesn't mean that you will reach this stage where you're never upset again or you never walk through fire again. Life just isn't designed that way, and it would also be boring. Remember, without the fire, we stay stagnant. So the fire comes into your life inevitably to catalyze this process, to push you to grow. So you'll find that you're riding on a high, you reach stage 7, you've done the work, and then out of nowhere, something happens to you and you get knocked down into this anger stage of fire, and there you find yourself walking through the fire. And trust me, I go there. I go through this process so many times. And when you find yourself in the fire, maybe at first you'll have this feeling of resistance to it, but then you have to remember, okay, I'm in the fire stage and now I know what I need to do to move forward. And then you'll find yourself crying your eyes out. You'll find yourself being emotional about whatever happened to you. That's the thing. You will go through this phase about you will go through this cycle and this process about different parts of your spirit and your soul and your personality. Like something might have happened to you in relation to your job. Then something might happen to you in relation to your health. Something might happen to you in relation to where you want to live. And all of these situations are happening for you, not to you, to push you to go through this evolution. And like I said, when you become a true alchemist and a master, you no longer ever fear the fire. You push yourself into the fire. And while you're going through it, you stay still and you know with conviction and with faith and belief what's to come. And that's how you do it, guys. And the more you go through this cycle, the more you become pure and clean and evolved, and the more you operate on a brand new frequency. So every time you do this, you are cleansing and purifying your soul further, and you are operating at a higher frequency, and you are just manifesting more and more and better situations. To illustrate this, I'm going to share with you one of my favorite quotes ever from the book Siddhartha by author Hermann Hesse. So Govinda says in this book, "We have learned much, Siddhartha, and much remains to be learned. We are not going in circles. We are going upwards. The circle is a spiral, and we have already climbed several steps." So the circle is a spiral. Every time you complete the alchemical process, you are not just going around in circles. You are elevating your consciousness. So every time you complete it, you are going upwards and upwards and upwards and becoming more elevated. Your frequency, your vibration becomes higher and higher and higher, and your external reality becomes more amazing to match it. Think about it logically. Now that we went through all those steps, can't you see how, logically speaking, if you take the time to go into your subconscious and clear out things which were deep-rooted beliefs that are no longer serving you, beliefs that you might have been raised with, which have been holding you back, like a woman's place is in the home, or money is the root of all evil, or you need to achieve so much just to like show your worth in this society. Don't you see now how when you go into your subconsciousness, when you recognize these things, when you heal them and you shift your perspective, how much it can change your life for the better? Like, just if you just know that fact, right? So it's not some abstract thing anymore. This is what manifesting is. So once you go through this process, once you start spiritually ascending, you will be operating at a higher vibration. These things don't hold you back anymore, these belief systems. And it all starts with something horrible happening, something that seems like it's a horrible thing happening to you, but as an alchemist, you can see it's happening for you. So next time you find yourself in the fire, ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? Or at least have faith that you were on the journey, on the alchemist path, okay? And now you know how to move forward. So guys, ask yourself now, what phase of alchemy do you think you're in right now in your life? What stage are you in your life in this current situation? And don't judge yourself. Often people that I work with, they take a lot of pride in feeling that they are in stage 7 or in the higher stages. And I am proud of them too, because that means they've done the work. But please do not feel any shame if you are in calcination or dissolution, because that is also part of the journey. That is also part of the process. And I am the first one to tell you that at any given point in my life, you might find me in any one of those stages. And I'm constantly going through this cycle over and over and over again. And Sometimes it's not fun, depending on what stage I'm in. Sometimes it's amazing. So that's how the process goes. You got to get through the really hard stuff. You got to get through the really hard phases in order to enjoy the amazing things that come after it. This is what you got to do in order to manifest the life of your dreams and to be an alchemist. So that was today's episode. I know it was a lot to take in, but as promised, I believe you can now see life in a completely different way. And I want you to just get out there and focus on moving forward in your spiritual journey, wherever you are, in whichever stage of alchemy you are in. Thank you so much for making it this far. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. But also, if you made it this far, let me know that you listened to the whole episode by going on my Instagram and commenting. I need to choose a rare emoji. I was gonna say fire, but that might be too common. Why don't you comment an alien emoji? Comment the alien emoji to let me know that you watched this episode and you made it all the way through to the end. That's how I know you're a real one. Thank you and love you so much. See you in the next one.